What's his mother name, you know? Margalit Bat.
I can call Adam.
It's okay, Sarah. Ruach Adonai tenachena began Eden. When you don't know, you say Sarah. Also, this week is the Yotzat of my grandfather, Moshe Chai ben Bila. Ruach Adonai tenachena began Eden, B'ezrat Hashem. We'll do the shiur also for him. Okay, guys, B'ezrat Hashem, we will learn some secrets of Torah from the Parsha. What is the Parsha today?
Not sure.
I tell my kids every Shabbat, what's the Parsha today? You get a candy. They fight. Parashat Behar. Behar Sinai means in Mount Sinai. This parasha is mainly talking about something that we don't practice here in Canada. It's called shmita. Shmita is basically the 7th year, according to the law of Torah. In the 7th year, you have to rest the land. You don't grow anything. You don't even take any fruits. Even if something is growing, there is rules, what you can take, what you cannot take. And Shemitah is basically a very, very big test. It's a commandment, it's a mitzvah, but it's a very big test for the person. Why? Because back in the days, all the money that people would make would be mostly from working the land. Fruits, vegetables, all this, that was the main job of most people. Even those who are not working in the land, they still need the land because they need to produce food for their animals, or for bread, for vegetables, fruits. They need it. Now imagine God tell you 1 year you can't work the land, you can't benefit the land, and basically your main source of income is not allowed. So what do? This is a big test. When God tells you to do such a thing, that will imagine that God will tell you now, okay, for 1 year you have to quit your job. What's the first question coming to your mind? No. So how I'm gonna make a living, right? According to Torah, let's say how we have Shabbat, right? We have Shabbat. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you 1 day don't work. Okay, so 1 day it's easy. Why? Because I work 6 days, I make enough. 1 day, okay, I can handle it. But imagine God tells you the 7th year, a whole year don't work, and tells you don't worry, everything will be fine.
But you can work other jobs, you just can't work in that.
Yeah, but if this is your job,
Right. But you're allowed to make money in
It's
other
not just the job, it's also
Okay.
how are
But
people
he's
gonna
saying-
eat? How are, like, the people who still need to eat food even if they're working.
right?
And he's saying also most people that was their job.
That was their job.
Right.
And even today, let's say, you know what, not for most people, but some people, that's their job. Imagine I tell you, quit your job for 1 year. Go ask for another job.
It's a big test. Yeah.
That's a big test. Yeah, that's a big test.
There's also someone in 50th year, right? What's that one?
Yes, the 50th years, Yovel.
We
It's
just
also...
had it a few years ago, no?
there is a argument. What is the actual 50 year? But yet according to some opinions, we had it a few years ago. So that was a big test. There is one big rabbi that I really like. This rabbi. He was the brother of another rabbi that is very known, the brother of Rabbi Elimelech from Lizansk. I don't know if you heard about him. He has a book, Noam Elimelech. His book is like a very holy book. They say that if a lady wants to give birth easily, you put his book under her pillow when she giving birth, under the bed, and it's a sgula to have an easy birth. Like the book has a very Very strong power. Noam Elimelech. His name was Rabbi Elimelech Milizansk, but his book is called Noam Elimelech. A lot of people, they also put it for protection. You know, like they put the small Tehillim. So a lot of people put small Noam Elimelech under the pillow, under the bed, for the baby. The actual book has holiness, has blessing. So Rabbi Elimelech from Milizansk, he lives like around 200 years ago. He had a brother. His brother was more like less known than his bigger brother Elimelech. His name was Rabbi Zusha. Now, he was always calling himself, he was such a humble person, he never said, I am. You know, when you say I am, so you feel a little bit of like, I am. You know, it's a little bit of a pride. He never said that word. So how he would call himself? He will call himself in his name. For example, he would not say, I'm hungry. He would say, Zusha hungry. That's how that's how we used to live. Okay? Zusha is hungry. Zusha wants to go out. You know. That's how we used to speak. Now, he was a very, I call him cute. You know, he was such a rabbi that he was much humble. There's a lot of stories about him. I'll tell you one story just to understand who we're talking about. Rabbi Zusha had a very big faith in God. Emunah. Like to the extent that he was learning Torah from the morning, and he holds that everything is from God. So every morning he would learn, and when he would feel a little bit hungry, he would start to pray, Bono Shel Olam, Hashem, Zusha is hungry. And he's continuing learning. As if Hashem needs to give him the food, because, okay, Hashem, you're my father, you know. After a while, he says, again, Zusha is hungry. Now, when his students hear Zusha hungry, what they do? Right away, they prepare him, you know, the food, and he eats. And that's how it was every day. He just says, Zusha hungry, and he gets the food. One day, he had two students that they said, listen, we always make him the food. Let's see if he's really, you know, believes that God will give. Let's see if God will really give him the food, if not us. So they told all the guys in there, let's test it. It's like L'Shem Shamayim, it's for a good reason. We just want to see how God is going to make it. To our rabbi, nobody prepare food for the rabbi. He says that it's hungry, don't answer, don't do anything. Okay, everybody agreed, and they did that. After a while, in the morning, he felt a little bit hungry, puts his eyes up and says, Hashem, Zusha is hungry. Okay, nobody does everything and anything. You continue learning. You know the story?
No?
Continue learning. After a few hours of learning, it's already almost noon. You always also again, Hashem, Zusha is very hungry. And continue. 3:00 in the afternoon. Bono Shel Olam, Zusha is very, very hungry. All of a sudden, he just said very, very hungry. Someone opened the door. A man with waiters having hot food. And they are asking, who is Rabbi Zusha? All the students were shocked. What do you need him for? I came to give him food. Wow, how do you know? Bekitzer, we gave him food to eat. Then they asked him, like, how do you know Rabbi Zusha? How do you know that he wanted to eat? Like, he says, yesterday I had a dream. And in my dream, my father came to me and said that he's very mad at me that I didn't do proper Kaddish for him. And I didn't elevate his soul. So I said, Abba, how can I help you there? He said, start to do Kaddish, but there is a rabbi that tomorrow would not have food. And if you will give him food, that will be such a great mitzvah that will elevate my soul. I want you to do so. Who is that rabbi? Rabbi Zusha. In the dream, he told them one day before. Like in Shamayim, in heaven, they knew that the students are gonna do all that. And why is all this? To show you that when you have real faith in Hashem, real one, you get it. This is Rabbi Zusha. So what Rabbi Zusha says on this mitzvah shmita? The shmita, it says like this. It says that you have to stop working on the 7th year. Don't work the land. Then says the Torah, "V'chi tomar," and if you will say, Shalom Aleichem Tzaddik. בטח שאני מכיר אותו. And if you would say, what would I eat? How would I make a living? מה נאכל בשנה השביעית? What are we going to do in the 7th year?
So the Torah is asking,
The Torah is saying, after God commands you to not work on the 7th year, you may ask, but what would I eat? How am I going to make a living? So God says, don't worry, I will give you so much in the 6th year that will be enough for the 6th year, for the 7th year, and you need for the 8th year, because if you didn't do anything in the 7th, so in the 8th, you're also not going to have much. So that's the answer of the Torah. Says Rabbi Zusha, he says, really, God always gives. God gives money, parnasa, food to everyone all the time. God is like the sun. The sun always gives light. You know what's making people poor? Making people not receive the blessing of God? That they ask, but what I'm going to eat in the 7th year? What if I'm not going to work the land? What's going to be? How I'm going to make a living? The question, how am I going to make a living? That's blocking the blessing of God from you. That's what Rabbi Zusha says. Means that you get parnasa. Parnasa is living, money, food from God, regardless. God created you in this world, like the sun gives you light and gives you warmth. God gives you always blessing and parnasa for making a living. But when you don't trust God and you say, but what's going to be tomorrow? I'm going to make a living. What's going to be next month? What's going to be next year? Those questions, those doubts, they block you from the sun. They block you from the blessing of God. That's why you see a lot of people that they have very hard time with making money, with making a living. Why is that? It's because they don't have faith and trust in God. Faith and trust means they are worried. And that's the key. If you come to me and you say, okay, Rabbi, give me the secrets how I'm going to make good money. One secret. Don't worry. You know why rich people become more rich? Because they less worry. Because they have. When you less worry, you trust. When you trust, you get. But when you ask questions, but what if? What I'm going to eat? I'm going to make a living. This itself blocks you. Says Rabbi Zusha, Be'emet, they would get it even for the 7th year. God will make a way to give you money and food, even if you don't work the land. But the actual question is already blocking. That's why God needs to tell you, okay, I'm going to make it in the 6th year, because you're asking questions, you don't have trust. That's what Rabbi Zusha says. That's one interpretation. That's the shmita. This is how the parasha starts, with shmita. But I want to tell you another secret today. Do you know what happened today, right, in the world?
Yes.
I don't know if he died yet, but everybody's like, died, didn't die. Like, my wife told me that that's the only case in the world that someone had a helicopter crash or like an accident, and everybody is waiting for his death.
I read the headline.
You need to be so evil for a whole world to be so unempathic. Empathetic to you. Unempathetic to you. Anyhow, the parasha that we read last week was talking about the holy days, Parashat Emor, and Shabbat and Yom Kippur. One of the things, there is a big connection, I'm going to tell you right now, between Shabbat, Yom Kippur, what we read, and what's happened today to that man. What's the connection? Shabbat, it says in last parasha, and also it's a little bit mentioned in our parasha, there is something special about Shabbat that we have a mitzvah to accept the Shabbat a little bit early. For example, Shabbat gets in at 7:30, for example. Okay? If you accept it at 7:20, you fulfill a mitzvah, and according to most poskim, mitzvah from the Torah, one of the 650 mitzvot. It's a mitzvah to accept the Shabbat earlier. It has also a name in halacha, it's called Tosefet Shabbat. Tosefet Shabbat, it means that you add, the Shabbat needs to be 24 hours, but you added another 15 minutes, so you made it 24 hours and 15 minutes. So you added from the Friday to the Saturday, to the Shabbat. That's a mitzvah to do so. According to the very simple explanation, why is this a mitzvah? Why is this such a good thing? Is because you're showing honor to the Shabbat. God gave Shabbat for 24 hours. You say, Hashem, I want more. I take from the Friday and I make it Shabbat as well. That's the simple interpretation why Tosefet Shabbat is such an important thing. But there is more into that. First of all, this small amount of time that we take from the weekdays to the Shabbat has a big power and effect on our life. I'll tell you a story just to understand that from the beginning. There is a rabbi, lived around 400 years ago, the Ridbaz. He was a rabbi of Tzfat, but before he became the rabbi of Tzfat, he was a rabbi in somewhere in Poland called Slotsk. It was a city. He was the rabbi of that place. One day he became very sick. He was so sick that he was sure that that's it. He's gonna die. He was so weak. And then one time he lost his consciousness. And he says that his soul, he's not sure if it was a dream or was like real, that his soul came out, but he saw himself going to heaven. And when he reached there, they told him, welcome, you're coming to the next world, you finished your mission in this world, you don't need to leave anymore. And then the Ridbaz started to argue with one of the angels there, saying that, no, I can't die right now. I need to go back. They say, what do you mean? It's the time. He says, no, I have an interpretation that I'm writing a book on the Gemara Yerushalmi. You know, we have two types of Talmud, Gemara. Talmud from Babylon, Bavli, which is the more known Talmud that everybody learns. But there's a Talmud called Talmud Yerushalmi. In Yerushalayim they wrote it. Which is, they say that it's a little bit harder. It's also smaller. But there is no much interpretations on the Yerushalmi Talmud like into the Bavli Talmud. Anyhow, he was writing and he didn't finish yet. So he was telling to the angel there in heaven that, like, hold on, you can't take me right now. I'm in the middle of the book. Like, send me down. I need to finish the book. So they answer him back and they say, don't worry about it. We have someone else to finish it. Your time came. So then he was trying something else and he was saying, but one moment. I have an organization that helps orphans and widows that don't have money, and we support them. If I'm not gonna be there, they can't without me. I need to, who's gonna support those orphans? So they told him, don't worry, we already set up someone that will take care of it as well. And then he didn't know what to say to save his life. He wanted to convince them that he is deserved to stay in this world. So he was saying, but one second, recently me and my congregation, we accepted on ourselves Tosefet Shabbat, to accept the Shabbat earlier. And I was explaining them, and I didn't finish establishing this new custom to my people. Please send me back so I can finish it. On this one, they didn't argue. They send him back. Tosefet Shabbat, this is such an important thing. You come back. Save his life. And he continued living, and also made Aliyah to Israel, became the rabbi of Tzfat for many years. And he said that this story he wrote in his book just to explain us, there's a lot of mitzvot, but one of the strong ones, even though it sounds very simple, it's adding this time to accept the Shabbat a little bit before. And you have to understand, and you have to know what synagogue you go to. A lot of people, they go to synagogue, and in that synagogue they accept Shabbat very late. That's not good. Try to go to places that you accept the Shabbat earlier. Shalom Aleichem Tzaddik. So nice to see you. השתבח הבורא. מה זה? You never interrupt.
Good to see you.
הכל בסדר?
Yeah.
יופי. כן. So, sometimes you go to synagogue, they accept Shabbat very late. You have to know that you have to accept the Shabbat before the sunset. For example, if sunset is 8:30, so make sure you accept the Shabbat. If you are in synagogue, you say Boi Kala, Boi Kala, Boi Kala, Shabbat Malkita before 8:30. Any minute that you do it before 8:30, it's called Tosefet Shabbat. Means you accept the Shabbat a little bit earlier. The more earlier, better. If you don't pray in synagogue, make sure at home. So you tell it to your wife if you're married. Listen, when you light candles, light a little bit earlier because it's such a big mitzvah. The Chafetz Chaim said, if someone has a problem in his life, tzara, and he needs a redemption, he needs a Yeshua, what should he do? He should accept on himself to accept Shabbat a little bit earlier. You see, everybody is happy that he died. Also in Iran they did it. No, it's Victoria Day actually. That's why.
It's okay.
Well, that's better. So, that's Tosefet Shabbat. By the way, we spoke about money. That's also a good way to make money. So you have to listen to this one. There is a pasuk here. You need to focus a little bit. This is like more of a little bit of not Kabbalah, but almost Kabbalah. There's a blessing that Yaakov gave to his sons. Every son he blessed him like a special blessing. One of the sons of Yaakov, his name was Asher. Asher, what was the blessing he got? It says in Parashat Vayechi, Me'asher shemena lachmo, Asher, his bread is shmena, is fat. Ve'u iten ma'adane melech, and he will make איך אומרים מעדנים? מעדנים is like gourmet, for kings. Means Asher, the blessing that Yaakov gave him, he gave him a blessing, shmena lachmo, fat bread. Fat bread means like parnasa, means money. bread always symbolize income. Fat bread means a lot of income. So say, our sages, they say, Asher shemena lachmu. What is Asher? Asher is 3 letters. Aleph. You familiar with the letters? Aleph, Shin, Reish. Okay? Now, Shabbat is also 3 letters. Shin, Bet, Taf. Okay? If you take the Shabbat, Shin, Bet, Taf, and you accept the Shabbat earlier, means take the letters of Shabbat and accept it earlier, means take the earlier letters. So what's the earlier letter of Shin? The one before Shin? Kuf, Reish, Shin. So Reish, right? Remember Reish. Reish is the before of Shin. What's the before of Bet? That's easy. Aleph. Okay, so we have Reish and Aleph. And what's the one before Taf? Shin. If you take those 3 letters, it's going to be Asher. So if you take the Shabbat and you get it earlier, so you become what? Asher. And what's Asher? Shmena lachmo has a fat bread, he has money. You understand? So when you accept the Shabbat earlier, it gives you a blessing of good income. You got it? Chazak.
Yeah.
That's the secret. But I'll tell you another thing. This is even more chazak. This is just to warm up. Asher, this is one thing. But it says, there is a phrase in the Talmud. עשה שבתך חול ואל תצטרך לבריות. On Shabbat, we need to enjoy. You need to have the best food you can for Shabbat. To honor Shabbat, there is a mitzvah honoring Shabbat. וקראת לשבת עונג. You have to make the Shabbat pleasure. So even if you don't eat certain piece of meat in a regular day, on Shabbat, bring it in. Don't worry about the money. God will send you. That's what the Torah teaches. Shabbat needs to be the best. You buy a Gucci suit, nice map, everything on the table, whatever you have, plates, forks, and food, the best of you that you can. This is a mitzvah on Shabbat. However, the Gemara says, what if you don't have money? What's better? To buy the best of Shabbat and asking for a loan? Yeah? Go ask for, not just a loan, go ask for donation to honor the Shabbat. Or it's better to not ask for donation, but having Shabbat like chol, like regular day. What's better? What do you think? No, not a loan. Donation. Go ask for donation. Dro, can you give me please money to make the Shabbat honored, pleasure? Or maybe, okay, so my Shabbat will be like a regular day, but at least I'm not asking for money. So the Gemara says very clear, asking money, that's not a good thing. I mean, if you don't have any other choice, it's okay. But it's better to avoid it, even though your Shabbat will be like a regular day. Aseh Shabbatecha chol, make your Shabbat weekday, ve'al titztarech labriot, and don't be in the need of other people. That's the phrase in the Talmud. That's the simple interpretation of that phrase. However, you can understand it a little bit deeper. Aseh Shabbatecha chol, make your Shabbat a weekday. How can we make a Shabbat a weekday? Taking from the weekday and making it Shabbat. Means if I accept Shabbat earlier, I make the weekday Shabbat. Says the Gemara, if you make the weekday Shabbat, לא תצטרך לבריות. You don't need to be needy of people. That's how you need to understand that. People that accept Shabbat earlier, they will not need other people. They will not need to ask for donations. They will have enough. But I have another one for you. And this has to do with Iran. How many, according to Judaism, how many not countries, umot ha'olam, nations. Oh, how many nations we have in the world? 70. The Torah says we have 70 nations. Well, we know we have basically more. No, it's 70 nations that somehow were divided to small nations within those nations, but there's 70 roots of nations. Okay? Am Israel is the 71st. We are the 71st nation. But there's 70. Now, we know that the nation doesn't like us. Today it's more even, they're not ashamed to publicize it and tell it to everyone, especially in universities. And they tell us, listen, we don't like you Jews, you are bad. Okay? Anti-Semitism, that was always in the world. The Torah says that the 70 nations are divided to two. They're divided to Edom. Edom is the nations that came from Esav, the son of Yakobov, the bad guy. And this corresponds to, in our days, to the more Christian nations. The Christian nations, Esav, like the US and maybe Russia, and those who are more European, white, Esav. And the other 35 from the 70, they correspond to Ishmael. Ishmael is the son of Avraham, that all the Muslims claim that they came from Ishmael, and they continue the way and the path of Ishmael. So technically, even though there's other nations, but they're all categorized in those two, Esav and Ishmael. 35 and 35. Okay? Now look what happened in the world. The Jewish nation had the Torah. God chose the Jewish nation. By the way, Islam and Christianity, they both accept Judaism. They both accept the Torah. If you don't believe in the 5 books of Moses, you cannot be a Christian. This is called the Old Testament, which everybody needs to believe in. Same thing for the Muslims. Muslims have Musa. Who is Musa? Musa is Moshe. They have Joseph, Yusuf. Who is Yusuf? Is Yosef. All those, they have all those stories. They say clearly the nation of Israel is the nation of the book. That's why, by the way, in Iran you have 18,000 Jews that still live there. And they don't do anything to them because they claim that this is the nation of the book, and we have to, if they don't attack us or do something bad to us, we can let them live under our
Sharia.
Yeah. The problem with Israel, that is like we are occupying their place and we're not under them, so they want to kill us. But if we are under them, they have no problem with us. That's what they claim. That's what at least the Quran says. Now, we know that Islam and Christianity, this is fake religions, okay? Those religions were made by 2 people, Jesus and Muhammad. The one day came and stayed as a story and everybody believed him. It's not like the Torah that 600,000 people saw God talking to them. You know, it's not a testimony that we had. Just a guy said a story. Also, there's a lot of mistakes in the Quran, a lot of mistakes in the Christianity, from one place to another place. Any person that will read all 3 of them will say clearly that the first one is genius. The other one's okay. You can see that a human being wrote it. Okay? Now, they made the religions. Now look, when they made their religions, they made it very interesting. They all understood that they need a day of rest. They took it basically from Judaism. Judaism had 6 days of creation, and then God decided to rest on Shabbat. When Jesus or his student actually came and needed to write a book, they had a problem because Shabbat is occupied. It's the Jewish. We need another day of rest. So what did they do? They said, okay, what's the problem? After Shabbat we have Sunday. So they took the Sunday, they made Sunday holy. Simple, right? Muhammad, he had the same problem. But he had a worse problem because when he came up with his religion, he says, okay, Shabbat is occupied. Sundays also. So what I'm going to choose? Okay, let's make it Friday. So Friday, this is their holiday day. They don't work on Fridays. They don't. So they took those days that are around Shabbat as their holy days. Very interesting. Why didn't they choose Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
It's not touching.
Oh, it's not touching the Shabbat. Very interesting what they did. Why? Because in spirituality, those religions, those people, those souls, they have to take and suck energy from the holiness. That's why they want to be very close to us. That's why every place we are, they have to come and occupy it also. Because they want, in spirituality, the bad powers getting energy from the source of holiness, which is Judaism. So they made it very, very close. Now, they want to overcome us. Muslims Friday, Christians Saturday, Sunday. How can we overcome them? Says the holy books, Rabbi Nachman from Breslov. He says that basically Shabbat is the holy day. All the energy comes from Shabbat. When you take from the Friday, a piece of Friday into the Shabbat, spiritually, basically what you do is you're taking from the Muslims their power back to the Jews. And when you take Shabbat, when it ends, and you expand it, and you end the Shabbat, let's say 10 minutes after, there's something called Rabbeinu Tam. I don't know if you heard about it. Shabbat ends when the stars come out. However, according to some opinions, Rabbeinu Tam's opinion, the stars comes out in different countries like Canada, for example, 35 minutes later. So some people, they will end Shabbat 35 minutes later. Avodia says, by the way, it's very important to do so if you can. By doing so, ending the Shabbat 30 minutes later, 20 minutes later, 45 minutes later, you basically, what you do, you take from the Sunday to inside the Saturday, you make it Shabbat. So you overcome the Christians. Now, this can help us to be soldiers even though we are not soldiers. What does the soldier do? They have to overcome the Hamas, the Islam, Iran. But we are not soldiers, we are not there. How can we help them? Accept Shabbat earlier. Take from the Friday to the Saturday, you overcome them spiritually. You understand? And when we have problems with America that doesn't want to give us whatever, or wants to put sanctions, how do you help that? That we will control them and they're not going to control us, is by taking the Shabbat a little bit later. Taking it out later. That's the secret. And that's why those two things are very, very important. And this is, you can actually help. People asking, how can I help the soldiers? Do that. You want to help Am Yisrael to overcome Islam, because Rabbi Chaim Vital said that the last exile will not be an exile of Edom, of the Christians. It's going to be the exile of Ishmael. He said clearly 450 years ago that before coming of Mashiach, it says that the Mashiach will come after the exile of Ishmael. Muslims will cause us problem before times of Mashiach. And that didn't happen much in the history. We usually had problems from the Christian world. You know, Germany and Spain and all those places. In Ukraine and Russia. But now everything changed. This 35 nations are fine with us, the Christians one. They are fine, they're helping us. They said, okay, come back to Israel, make your own land. We support you. They have their agenda, right? But they are kind of, they don't have such a problem with us. Today, the problem is with the Ishmael.
It's also in Sefer Daniel, right? You mentioned that the last Galut in Sefer Daniel will be the Galut of Ishmael.
Galut of Ishmael, yeah. That's why, you know, it says it's very interesting. Now look how everything is connected. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin talks about Mashiach. And the Gemara says, you know how Mashiach is going to come? Ani verochev al chamor. Mashiach is going to come like a poor person that is riding a donkey. What does that mean? He's not going to have a car?
That's right.
Like, yeah, like, well, what's a donkey? Like, imagine, in our days, the Mashiach comes on a donkey. This is so weird. What the Torah wants to tell you, the Gemara wants to tell you, Mashiach, who is donkey? The Torah describes sometimes nations by animals. For example, when Avraham Avinu needed to make Akedah, to kill his son, Yitzchak, it says that he came, it was in Jerusalem. Har HaMoriah, where Kotel HaMa'aravi, that was the mountain when the Akedat Yitzchak happened. So, he woke up in the morning, Vayikach et shnei ne'arav ito, he took those two guys. Who were those two guys? No, Ishmael and Eliezer. Okay? He took them and Yitzchak. They went 3 days. Then Avraham stopped. He told them, you look at the mountain. It was Jerusalem mountain. They say, yes. Do you see anything? Yitzchak says, I see. He saw a light, the Shekhinah. They didn't see it. So Avraham Avinu right away understood, those guys, they don't see it. So he told them, Shvu lachem po im hachamor, you guys sit here with the donkey, and I'm going to go with him. Rashi says, what is sit with a donkey? Rashi says, Avraham Avinu told them, you are like the donkey. The donkey doesn't see what's happening there. So you like, Ama domeh lechamor. Your nation is like a nation of a donkey. This is Rashi, 1,000 years ago says that. And also Arabs, they really like donkeys. I don't know why. No, you realize that? I lived with I lived in Carmiel in the north of Israel. The Arabs were my friends. I had an Arab in my class, and we had a joke. I was saying like, yeah, he lived in the village, in the Arab village beside. So we had a joke. I was telling me, yeah, your father brought you here with a donkey. Like, they have those things until now, until today. So, Ama domeh lechamor, they're like a donkey. That's what Avraham Avinu said 4,000 years ago. You are donkeys. Okay, what does it tell me? When Mashiach is going to come, he's going to ride on the donkey. Mashiach will come when he will overcome the Islam. He will ride on them. You understand?
What about the poor part?
Oh. So one of the interpretations is Ani. Maza Ani means after A poor person is a person that is in pain. That it's not going to be easy. It's going to come with a lot of pain. But at the end, we will overcome them. Rabbi Chaim Vital, I don't want to scare you guys, but Rabbi Chaim Vital says, Galut Ishmael is the last Galut. It's the last exile. And he says, V'akasha mikulam. He says it's the hardest. That's what Rabbi Chaim Vital says in his Pirush on Tehillim. He writes it down.
The hardest meaning in which way?
So that's the thing. He doesn't extend. Maybe it's going to be spiritually hard. Maybe it's going to be physically hard. And even if a rabbi said such a thing, we always have the opportunity. Rabbi Nachman says when we pray, when we try to, like I said, Tosefet Shabbat, you overcome it, you can change. We have the power to change. We are actually the people that need to do. Rabbi Nachman says we have to do as much as we can. More Torah, more Tosefet Shabbat, more prayers, more Tehillim. Don't think that the Tehillim that you say every day is that doesn't do anything. It does a lot. Look what's happening in the world. Not long ago, a few days ago, the whole world was praying for a Persian kid. You heard about him? Jewish kid. This guy that passed away today in a helicopter wanted to kill him. The whole Jewish world was praying for him. On Shabbat he needed to be killed. What happened all of a sudden? They didn't kill him. They said, okay, we postpone it for another month. Let's see, let that. At the same time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, those who wanted to kill him, boom, you will be died. One Jewish guy that lives in Iran. He lives in Iran, and they wanted to execute.
Why didn't Shamba kill him?
He's still there, but they didn't kill him. But Zot Hashem, we still pray that he will be saved. He's not in the jail, he's home. They sent him home. You see? השתבח שמו לעד. בנהפוך הוא, בדיוק. So you see, miracles are happening. We just have to open our eyes. This is happening every day, Baruch Hashem. So this is the power of Tosefet Shabbat. If you add to the Shabbat, from the Friday, you overcome the Islam. If you add from the Saturday, you are overcoming Christianity. If you add from both, Adrabah. But I'll give you another thing. We said 70 nations, 35 and 35, right? We have 70 nations. What overcomes all of them together? We said Shabbat, adding Shabbat. But not just the add that we add from before and after. If you look at the Kiddush of Shabbat, Friday night, count, without Borei Pri HaGefen, count the Kiddush itself. How many words we have there? You're going to count exactly to the number of 70. Kiddush of Shabbat has 70 words. Why? Because Kiddush of Shabbat, our sages say, when we do it properly, Am Yisrael does it. They overcome that week. The whole 70 nations, the 70 nations cannot harm you. That's why one of the things that we have to publicize and to let other people know, Dafka now, when we are in a danger, that the whole world is against us, and anti-Semitism coming back to the world, we need to overcome them. How do we overcome them? 70 nations, Kiddush. Make sure you say the Kiddush proper. You say it with intention. You say it every Shabbat. You don't speak in the between. You make it on a good wine. With all the halachot, all the laws that needs to be done, Kiddush of Shabbat. If you realize all those things that are happening in the world today, and the problems that we have from the other nations, only one thing keeps us safe is Shabbat. Also in this October 7th, how many stories? I have a personal story from someone from my family. this this girl, she was coming from a religious family, and she went off the derech, what we call. She stopped keeping Shabbat. And she went to that party on October 7th. And she decided that she started to, get some inspiration coming back to Judaism. And she decided that she wants to keep Shabbat again before everything happened. And she left on Friday.
We're going for a few days.
Huh? It was going for 3 days, yeah. From Thursday to Saturday. And she decided she will go home. And she was saved. I know 2 girls that went to a seminar, went to a Arachim seminar. Arachim, it's like, outreach. And they accepted on themselves in the seminar to keep Shabbat. They were not keeping Shabbat. And after the seminar, a few weeks after that, there was this party. So they went to the party. And then they had this question, what to do. From one hand, we accepted Shabbat. From the other side, all our friends are here and we are... Both of them, they said, you know what? Let's just leave before Shabbat. I have an aunt. She lives in Behar Sheva. We'll go there. We'll do Shabbat. Then we'll come back on Motzei Shabbat. They did it, and they even convinced other people to do that with them. They went to Behar Sheva. They were saved.
They found there was one of the dead terrorists, Hamas or Machshamat. They in his notes they found the number of the house.
Yes.
Skipped their house. They weren't. It says this house number not home on Shabbat.
Right.
But this Shabbat they were home.
They were home.
But usually they left to the parents.
Yes. I heard that as well. And there was a lady, she said it in the news. She was in the mamad. You know what's mamad? How you say mamad?
The safe room. The
Safe room. The Yimach Shemam, those Hamas, they were outside, they were shooting everywhere, they were breaking the doors. And she was sure that they're going to break the door and get inside, and she was holding both of her kids and says, Hashem, please, I promise you, if you save me, I'm going to start keep Shabbat. They killed the house from the right side, from the left side. They didn't do anything to her. She says, I don't understand. Of course, she started to keep Shabbat since from there. That's a miracle. 2 days ago, I heard another story. It has nothing to do with Shabbat, but already we're talking about it. You have to hear this one. A guy, a religious man, that he took upon himself to help poor people. Every week on Fridays, he brings food containers for poor people in the Kotel. Everybody comes and takes. He collects money from people to buy these food containers. He collects thousands of shekels every week. He says in a month they have like close to 30,000 shekels on food that he collects from people just to make this for free, for people to take and have food. He does this mitzvah. And he needed to buy a truck, a pickup truck, so he can bring the containers and everything. So he bought, in the beginning of October, he bought a new Toyota white. Looks exactly the same brand like the Toyota that the Hamas used. They had these Toyotas, white Toyotas, pickup trucks. Same thing. He got it, and his daughter asked him if she was not religious. And she asked him to take the car to the party. And she took the car. He said, okay, it's a weekend, fine. Even though he keeps Shabbat, he says, okay, I'm not gonna, says, your life, fine, you can take it. She took the car, and what did they do, those Hamasnikim? They stopped and they saw that everybody is running. They stopped on the road, and they were checking every car. They either kill them or take them. And she says, I was not driving. I think her friend was driving. She got scared or whatever. He was driving, and somehow they don't understand, the plate number fell. Like, when does the plate number falls? It's a new car. So they were without a plate number. Hamas saw them. They saw a car like their car. There were 11 people in the car. They thought it's their people. They said, okay, go. And they let them pass. She said, that's a miracle. She says, it's the zchut of my father that was, doing this mitzvah. He took the car for this mitzvah. Saved the life of 11 people. Baruch Hashem, there's miracles in the world. So, okay, let's summarize the class today. Baruch Hashem, we have Shabbat, which is the source of blessing. And before Shabbat and after Shabbat, especially before Shabbat, when you take the Shabbat earlier, first of all, it's a zgula for redemption in whatever problem you have. Also, it's a very, very important thing to do. But the most important, it overcomes our enemies. The enemies that we need now to overcome. That's why it's very important to try. If you go to synagogue, go to those places that you know. Even tell the rabbis, there's a mitzvah, Sefer Shabbat. Sometimes even the rabbis, they're not very careful. Accept Shabbat earlier. Do boi kala, the lecha dodi that we do. We accept Shabbat there. Do it earlier a little bit. If you see that your synagogue doesn't do it, go to another synagogue. Or if you do it at home earlier. Tell your wife, tell your mom, whoever, to light candles 5 minutes, 10 minutes earlier to overcome our enemies. And if you can keep Shabbat a little bit. People today, Shabbat goes, right away they jump on the phone like, Baruch Hashem that Shabbat is over. No, I want to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I like Shabbat. I'll add another half an hour. Not touching my phone. To overcome Esav. That's a very strong thing. Bezat Hashem. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Zaku Baruch.